Okay, well, good morning. My name is Shilpi Saxena, and I'm the German NCP SC5, as well as coordinator of the NCP SC5 network project called NCP's CARE. I will give you the first thematic presentation on Societal Challenge 5, which is climate action, resource efficiency, environment, and raw materials. But before we go into the thematic context and aspects, just a few statistics on the international cooperation, a little short comparison, FP7 and Horizon. So question is, of course, why international cooperation from the European perspective? Well, in recent years, the worldwide landscape of research and innovation has undergone substantial transformations. The EU's political priority is, of course, to remain a major global actor on the international scene, because open to the world equally requires a close collaboration with international partner countries. And due to the interconnectivity of global societal challenges, the EU needs to intensify its access to and reap benefits from the world's best talents, expertise, and resources in R&I. This is an important realization because in the interim evaluation of Horizon around 2017, the Commission realized that there was a significant drop from third country participation in Horizon 2020 compared to FP7. So from the number side, it is 4.2 in FP7 down versus to 2.6 in Horizon. Well, one of the reasons is that the emerging economies have been categorized, as Nicole already mentioned, as industrialized countries. So with the focus of increasing competitiveness, jointly tackling global challenges, and increasing participation in international value chains. Therefore, countries like, or emerging economies like Brazil, Russia, India, China, plus Mexico, BRIC plus M, are not anymore eligible for funding under Horizon. This could also be used as an argumentation to say, well, then actually Horizon is not really directly comparable with FP7 because these eligibility conditions are quite different. Nevertheless, the Commission has decided to reinforce certain measures in order to strengthen international cooperation with third countries, non-associate third countries. For example, they have decided to flag more topics as international cooperation is encouraged, or more mandatory topics for third country participation, and even EU flagship initiatives, which culminate into joint activities or joint calls. And this is a reinforced measure concerning the last 3-year work program in Horizon from 2018 to 2020. The following slide will also illustrate again a little bit what Nicole also showed in the countries participating in the top 10, etc. And will also underline the fact, again, as in the decrease of participation. So if we look, for example, Australia has undergone a decrease, Russia, Brazil, India, Japan, Morocco, Mexico, Morocco, and Egypt. The blue bars are FP7, obviously, the white bars Horizon, and so you can see a relative decrease in participation. And again, this is based due to the changing of the funding eligibility in Horizon. So the BRIC plus M are exempted, and in order to counterbalance this trend of a decrease in participation, international cooperation flagships, as just mentioned, were introduced for the last 3-year work program, 2018 to 20, in order to, as a measure to strengthen strategic cooperation with key third partners on areas of mutual benefit. And 2 such flagships I will show you in a few slides in Societal Challenge 5. And just a few more statistics, not very long. So if we now look at Societal Challenge 5, work program 2014-2017, so the first 2-year work programs. If we look at the participation of third countries, in the area of flagged for international cooperation, we only had 91 participating from third countries out of a total of nearly 700. So that's not really much, even though they are flagged for INCO. That means encouraging mandatory level. And if we look at the next slide on the statistics, and this now again, Societal Challenge 5, for the years 2014 to 2019. Of course, I'm exempting 2020 for obvious reasons. The work program has not been officially published yet, so we're only looking up to 2019. And if we look in the category of flag number again, in the first 2-year work program, we only had 16, and now, as those reinforced measure, it has been doubled, nearly doubled. Looking in the terms of mandatory topics, in the first 2-year work program, there were 0 mandatory. In the second 2-year work program, 3, and in the last one, already 9. So in the current work program for 18 and 19. So now I'm going to go into the thematic aspects of Societal Challenge 5. And again, it stands for climate action, environment, resource efficiency, and raw materials. Shorter than SC2, and it has a shorter area of scope, but nevertheless, it is quite an interesting challenge to be able to deal with these different aspects. We have 2 main calls in SC5. The first one deals with climate, so Paris Agreement. And there are sub-calls on cryosphere, decarbonization, knowledge gaps, climate services, just to give you an idea. The second call deals with economy and therefore in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. And here we have thematic areas of circular economy, raw materials, non-NMBP related and non-agricultural, so that's the difference to SC2 and NMBP, nature-based solutions, earth observation, and cultural heritage. Again, just to give you a rough idea what we're dealing with in SC5. So, as already mentioned, there were reinforced measures. So we're going to start with the flagship initiatives, then look a little bit at the mandatory and at the encourage level. In SC5, we have 2 flagships. One is on the EU-India on water, and one on EU-China sustainable urbanization, actually nature-based solutions. The full title is this one, for this China call, Strengthening International Cooperation on Sustainable Urbanization, Nature-Based Solutions for Restoration and Rehabilitation of Urban Ecosystems. So I just shortened it up there to make it more easier to read. Now, one key indicator why we're dealing with a minimum mandatory category is, ideally, the title of the country or the name of the country is already listed in the title. Second indicator, in the special call conditions, at the end of the call section, you always find proposals shall include at least 1, 2, or 3 participants from country X. We have that as well. And the indicator why we're dealing with a flagship is the topic text itself. It states specifically that India is an EU strategic partner, as confirmed in the EU-India summit on so-and-so date, and there has been a memorandum of understanding on water cooperation on so-and-so date. So, and on China, it basically already says additionally that this is part of the EU-China flagship initiative on environment and sustainable urbanization. So those are the clearest indicators that we're in the highest category in the flagship initiative. If we look now, I know it looks a bit full, but I'm sorry. If we look now at the mandatory category, and again, only the years 18-19, the same topic where we have SC513A on China, the B is on EU CELAC or CELAC, which is the Latin American Caribbean countries. Why is this not part of a flagship? Why is it only in the category of mandatory? Well, first of all, luckily in the title it's already indicated which countries we're talking about. And secondly, we have also in the special call conditions that it shall include at least 3 participants from these countries. But in the topic text, there's no indicator of any MOU or that it's a flagship initiative. So we're in the mandatory category, which is good nevertheless, of course. If we look at this second from the bottom on the CE, topic identifier CE SC5, just for your information, CE stands for circular economy. And the prefix then always means in our SC5 work program that it has to address the EU Action Plan on Circular Economy. There are also topics without the CE prefix, only starting with SC5. So in this one we have raw materials, and the topic text only states INCO is encouraged, but particularly with countries from advanced countries using raw materials. It doesn't tell you more. So which are the advanced countries? I asked the Commission in December during our annual meeting with them as NCPs, and they said, well, you know, the typical US, Canada, Japan. And then in a follow-up email, they informed us to check the website of the raw materials unit. We did. We didn't really find much information except some bilateral agreements on trading with raw materials, EU trade with the raw materials. Luckily, from our NCP's CARE project, the network project, we had a webinar a few months prior to that meeting, and there was a really good slide which listed raw materials which are, or countries leading in the raw materials sector, resource-rich developing economies, and resource-rich emerging economies. So what I'm trying to tell you is if the information is not available in the topic text, try to pull the information from other sources. First, obviously, ask the Commission. Secondly, EC Funding and Tenders Portal, FAQ section. Third, then if you're lucky, maybe a webinar, or fourth, also try to contact some expert network, because that webinar was given by the EIT Raw Materials. So they should know, actually, if, which countries are advanced and dealing with raw materials. Just in case you're interested for this topic on CHELAC with the Latin American countries, in February was the first stage deadline, and 64 proposals were handed in. So for the second stage, we don't know how many will be invited. If we now look at the category encouraged, which is basically the simplest and first entry level, then I'm often asked by clients, well, if it's only encouraged, do I really need international partners? Can't I just, skip it? I normally tell them I highly advise you to use international partners if it is already encouraged, because it's possible that the evaluation could render less points. And the Commission itself stated on the slide, which they showed during the SC5 Info Day in 2017 concerning 218 calls, they themselves, well, encouraging INCO is not really an eligibility criteria, but it's of course a plus in the evaluation. So there you have the official statement. And of course, there are no special call conditions in the work program saying that there should be a minimum number of participants from country XYZ. So we're only on the encouraged level. And now we're getting to the first exercise. I don't know if, could you also then later in a moment show the second presentation, the handout? I don't know if you... In 5 minutes, we'll first go through, but Liane will kindly hand out the topic text of SC512, the EU-India water call. So there are two texts. You have the SC512 and the SC513, China and CHELAC. And once it's handed out, then I'll tell you what we're going to do. Okay, now everybody should be having two topic texts. One on India and one on China CHELAC. So SC512 and SC513, correct? Great. So I would like to go with you through the first 4 questions and then give you a short time to read concerning those aspects. So the first question would be, what are key aspects of international cooperation required in SC513? The second question, where can you find funding information for India, China, CHELAC? And is the information in the topic text provided sufficient to advise your clients? Then the third question would be, this is a little bit separately from the topic text itself. If additionally an unofficial Chinese translation on Chinese funding is available for your partners or for the European Union, then what would you advise your EU client as an NCP? So you have the Chinese official text and an unofficial Chinese translation, which you, of course, are able to read, but it is not really your, let's say, it doesn't really apply to you. It's just for your information because it's for the Chinese partners. So, but when your Chinese client will approach you based on information he has, what will you advise? And of course, when you have the funding for the CHELAC countries, what do you have to pay attention to on the eligibility there? So concerning the topic text, I'm the point is why I'm only giving you 5 minutes in total is that you don't have to read the whole topic text. You only have to pay attention to the two aspects as required. The first aspect is what are key aspects of international cooperation, only in the SC 513, so China CELAC. And additionally, you need to find out the funding information provided in the topic text for also SC 513, and then additionally for India. So those are only the aspects you have to look for. You don't have to read the whole text. What are the key aspects of international cooperation in this topic text of SC 513, EU, China, and CELAC? What you will find in scope in the middle is actions should review and capitalize upon existing experience and good practices in Europe and, option A, China or CELAC, to secure a fair and equitable distribution of benefits from the restored urban ecology. So it's all on concerning equal footing, equal balance of research and activity. So it's not that the European level should be higher and then the Chinese or vice versa. It should be all on equal footing. And those are the key aspects required. So basically the consortium and the proposal have to make sure it should be equal number of partners, equal fair distribution of research conducted, but also the impact and outcome should be fairly for both areas. And also, very necessary, in the bottom of page 1, actions should bring together European and, depending on Chinese or CELAC, the research partners, government agencies, urban authorities, private sector, civil society, with relevant expertise and competence to foster participatory engagement in urban ecological restoration actions. So also in the type of partners you're selecting, there should also be an equal and proper balance from both sides. And page 2 on the top, impact of the actions and the mutual benefits for both the EU and the international partners. And one really crucial sentence, which most people, or especially, the proposers like to ignore, is shortly before it goes into the subtopics, it says the participation of social sciences and humanities disciplines, also addressing the gender dimension, is crucial to properly address the topic. And that is not just for the European side, it's equally for the Chinese side. And this is something which often gets neglected. We always have to emphasize this vital point, because if the wording is crucial to properly address, you have to include SSH dimension in both partner directions. So now we go into question number 2. Where can you find funding info for these countries? So now we're only looking at the aspect of the funding information provided in the topic text. So anyone in both topics, EU, India, as well as EU, China, CELAC?
Well, for China and CELAC, for China there is a link where we should go to check the information concerning the Chinese funding.
Yep.
And for CELAC, it is indicated that there is a co-funding mechanism, Explorer 69, and I would say it's not really detailed as information compared to the information provided in the topic for EU-India water cooperation, where it is indicated that both the Indian Department of Science and Technology and Department of Biotechnology are committed to co-fund the Indian entities.
Perfect. Perfect, you answered everything. Yeah, but Piotr still has something to add.
Well, to my opinion, the information included here is not the answer to the common problem that we face in such a situation, because we will have a call from our clients where I'll find the Chinese participant, where I find the Caribbean or participants. So what I'm usually doing, I first refer them to all that BILAT and ERANET, INCOS actions, because it's actually their task. Because they are working there, they have the best contacts, and for Latin America, we have a BILAT for South Latin America. We have one for India, even it's not working. At the moment, I think it's already terminated, but the links are existing, and that's for me the first experts that can give the answer, despite, of course, of the common personal contacts. But it's not the issue here, because people coming to us and then asking for that. And the second channel that I never saw explicitly listed are the permanent representations. Because especially when people are asking, well, what can we do with Korea? What can we do with China? There would be any possibilities. The permanent representation is the very first that knows about it, because it's usually all those common topics are very often also politically determined and are following some talks, cooperations, agreements on science and technology, the cooperation. And I found, at least in the cases that I asked them, they was very, very helpful. They always have a counselor for science and technology in the permanent representations, and you can use them. In case of Germany, that's a way, especially for China, that's a waste amount of liaison offices of research organizations. Fraunhofer has one, Helmholtz has one. In India, there's a Helmholtz has official Helmholtz representatives, and they are also very helpful in finding partners.
Thank you, Petr. In case of SC5, all those who approached us already had established contacts with EU, India, China, or CELAC. They were not asking us, in maybe it's more in SC3, the case in energy. In SC5, there were many linkages, because there's just also quite a number of research going on between universities and research institutions, let's say with Latin America, but also with China. Okay, so, and thanks again to, sorry, I don't know your name? Your name, yeah. Okay, so because you answered all the question number 2 perfectly, so we don't have to go into further details there. So question number 3. Yes.
Colleagues from the commissions are there.
Yes.
Being quite often in the third countries, I've found many times that the traces of Horizon 2020 events that NCPs were not aware of. That the Commission goes to the third countries and is producing the opportunities for the cooperation, and we simply don't know about it. And it's a very helpful trace, because we have contacted the organizers, the people that we involved there. That's a certain overlap of interest. So it was actually twice in South Korea that the Korean Science Council organized the NCP workshop, including NCPs and everywhere. And then coming there, I found out that 1 month earlier or months later is another NCP event without NCP involvement between the Commission and the local authorities. And there was no interaction between those 2 events. And it's a pity.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And that has happened in the past. And that's one of the reasons why we are bringing together the 2 streams of work on the international cooperation side and the NCP work. And hopefully we'll be able to avoid that sort of situation in future, but you're right about that. I wanted Piotr to also just to come back on your question about how to find partners in third countries. And you mentioned the bilats, which are really being phased out now. So the Latin America one has also come to an end now. We had some Brazilian ones which have finished also. The ones in the US have finished. So and this is a trend around the world. So I think the answer to your question, how do we find these partners? You will use your own channels to a large extent, But don't forget the NCPs in those countries. I mean, this is what this day is about also. And why I said 900 of those NCPs in this network are in third countries. They don't cover the field, sadly, in the same way as the NCPs in Europe. We have big gaps, either thematically or in terms of individual countries. So there are no NCPs in the US. That's a problem for us. But where we have the NCPs, ask them. So I mean, Goret here, as the NCP for social sciences and humanities for Brazil, is the person to answer that question about how do I get gender into my project on sustainable urbanization. She knows the people who will be able to do that for you, and we must take advantage of all of that.
Thank you. Third question. As far as I know, SC2 also has an EU-China flagship initiative on food and biotechnology. I think someone from SC2, so of course, Serena, you're here. So I'm not sure if you also had an unofficial Chinese translation. Yeah, okay, which was provided by the Commission, and it was clearly stated it is an unofficial translation. So when you have that, and of course, that's the one version we can read, and just basically for our knowledge as well as for the client's knowledge. So when you have that available, what do you advise your EU client? Then maybe Serena, you want to answer from your perspective.
I'm used to advise them to. I'm sorry. I'm used to advise them to contact the Chinese counterpart and check clearly the information in the official version. So usually I clearly advise them to have a strong cooperation with the Chinese partner in that, because it's very important to have a clear trust with the Chinese partners.
Exactly. Same we give, because the unofficial translation is as it is, and it is not the basis for us advising the European client or who can then tell the Chinese partner, well, this is written in the English version. That has no meaning, because it's only valid what's written in the official Chinese version from the respective ministry or funding agency in China. And now the last question, actually easy for NCPs, but also often a question we get asked. What do you have to pay attention to when advising funding on the CELAC? Because the subtopic is EU CELAC. So what do we pay attention to, basically?
Not all the CELAC countries can get funding from the SC5 topic.
Exactly, because Brazil, again, is only by region. It's not the whole country, and they have quite a number of organizations. I mean, Goret is the one who can probably say it. I have an official answer reply from the EC here in front of in my notes, but there's a FAP, CNPq, FINEP, and CONFAP as the four main funding agencies. But depending if a participant on the Brazilian side is located in a state where one of these agencies is not working, then they have to contact two specific agencies which are national institutions, the CNPq and FINEP. And of course, Mexico, equally non-eligible for funding. Everybody else is basically eligible. So that is also something we often get asked when we want to do with Brazil, and then we also have to say, halt, wait, pay attention. There are certain regulations. Thank you for the first exercise, and as it indicates, there will be a second one in a short while. So now I would like to go into the two flagships a little bit more in detail. And I'm really curious to know also what, Serena, what experiences you have had with the China co-funding mechanism. Again, that's why I wrote it in red. It's really imperative. Only Chinese regulations apply for the Chinese partners. And that's full stop. There's no if and but. In our case, for the SC5 flagship initiative, Environment and Sustainable Urbanization, the Ministry of Science and Technology, MOST, was mainly responsible. In February of this year, the PC members were informed something about that the Chinese partners might not be receiving any funding in the selected proposals for SC513A. It's not quite clear because there's nothing official on the funding tenders portal. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical I didn't put it in writing, because as this is going to be online, I didn't want to, step on anybody's toes. So the thing is, what happened in February 2018, we had the first stage proposal. and 43 proposals were handed in for EU-China. Then in March was the last updated version, which still contained the flagship initiative on SC5, Environment and Sustainable Urbanization. September last year was then the second stage deadline, and 11 proposals were asked to hand in a full proposal. And by October, there was a change in the co-funding mechanism text. Suddenly, there were 9 thematic broad areas. These ones listed here. And the flagship initiative was not listed anymore. So now is the question, we're not quite sure, did they drop out? Are they still being funded? It's not clear. In December, during the annual meeting of us NCPs with the Commission, we asked the Commission to please also supply us those urban and peri-urban areas and ecosystems which will be funded in EU-China, because those covered in subtopic A with China are not allowed to be covered in subtopic B with CELAC, because that's one precondition in the topic text, because the Commission wants to ensure as wide a possible of broad range of conditions and urban context to be covered. So of course they didn't want a duplication of the same areas. So 3 days before Christmas, the Commission published on the EC Funding and Tenders portal under SC 513 a topic update and listed exactly those which are being funded under subtopic A, so with China. So I'm not going to mention the ones for Brussels and Barcelona, but they listed for Beijing, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Hubei, Xiamen, forest areas which are covered and going to be funded supposedly, and then Beijing trees, Shanghai urban natural areas, and Ningbo green-blue infrastructure. And then in February, so basically we had September, October, November, December, January, so the 5 months of the evaluation process over. February was the PC meeting. And then the unclear information started that we're not quite sure if now it's the case that the flagship initiative of SC5, which was originally denoted for SC513A, is still under the funding scope of MUST or not. Because it says that for this new call on these 9 thematic areas where the flagships are not listed anymore because it's a new call for 219, it says that an eligibility criteria is that you have to have submitted a joint proposal in the 218 work program. And since 218 is not clear yet, we don't know yet if Chinese partners are getting funded for the SC513A 218, then equally 219 is a little bit in jeopardy. So that is a bit of an unclear situation. What is clearer, though, is the India call. First of all, the topic text was much more clear in its elaboration, from my personal opinion. And here, too, we have 3 different ministries in charge of different areas for funding. So if we look at the joint water call, for example, 2 ministries, though it's not quite clear if the participants had to submit to DST and DBT or. That's something maybe you can tell in your presentation, because we have one of the funded project coordinators from Germany who will give her experience on the prior to submission as well as the experience after project start, which is also quite challenging as far as I know. Furthermore, there were basically the European deadline, of course, which was the same deadline for the Indian side. And additionally, the Indian side also had to submit a hard copy because, well, that's the Indian version, how they want to have it. And then there is a common panel for evaluators because it was only a 1-stage proposal. So everything was covered and done basically in 218. Ideally. And so we'll hear what's the status quo. And yeah, so from 79 proposals, which were in the 1 stage, 11 have been funded, and we have, luckily, the 1 German coordinator. There's one topic which is also interesting because it actually addresses the CELAC countries, but the DBT has listed that it would also fund if Indian partners participate. Nice to know that that's possible and that they're willing to do that, so even better for a wider outreach. And now we're getting already to exercise number 2. There's no handout, don't worry. We're just going to go through the questions, and I just would like to know your answers. These were basically questions on formalities. I'm not going to ask you thematic questions because you're obviously not SC5 NCPs, so we're looking at more finances and formality aspects. And I would like to go, and these were posed to us as the German SC5 NCP office. So I would like to go with you through each question and see what you would have answered. So, SC513. subtopic B, so CELAC, does it have to be 3 partners from 3 different CELAC countries, or can there be 3 partners from Brazil? Anyone? You have the topic text, so you could look. Yeah, Kathleen?
It can be 3 partners from Brazil, but I know
Correct.
because I see France. Yes, sorry. So it can be 3 partners from Brazil, as I know it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we look at, wait, there was another one. Yeah. If we look at this example for Africa, here it specifically states it shall include at least 3 participants from at least 2 different African countries. It doesn't say so for CELAC, and it only says 3 partners from CELAC. It doesn't say from 3 different CELAC countries. So theoretically, yeah, it's possible. Great. So then the next one. Do CELAC need a PIC and sign the grant agreement?
You're a strong yes. Yes,
Kim,
intuitively, just I would say yes.
Yeah. Well, the countries eligible for funding, of course, yes, they should. And Brazil and Mexico, though not eligible, but if you take them into your consortium, we also strongly advise that they should get a PIC and sign the grant agreement.
But they don't have to.
Ah, they don't have to. Okay.
They need a PIC.
Yeah, but they don't have to sign the grant agreement.
Because they could be an international partner.
Okay. Depending if they use the new Article 14A? Okay. Okay, I didn't specify that actually, but yes, if we do that little exception as well, new model grant agreement, Article 14A, where you can have an international partner linked to one specific beneficiary, then, okay, of course they don't need to sign the grant agreement. But if you're looking at the general version, very on the superficial version, then I would say, yeah, it's better to sign the grant agreement as well, if they're not using 14A.
Yeah, but they have a choice.
Yeah, they have a choice, of course. Third question. Whoops, sorry. The Indian part, we got an interesting question. If partners from Canada and Australia need to sign an LOI for the EU-India topic proposal, what would you suggest? What would you answer? Well, we have a colleague from Canada. Do they, well, LOI, or should they sign an LOI if they, because the topic is clearly EU-India, and we're having the one consortium had partners from Canada and Australia wanting to join it. So,
Well, as Adam mentioned, we have Article 14A. So under Canada, it would be an MOU, likely more than an LOI.
okay. Okay, good to know. Then I'll make that correction. Okay, because we answered that, but safety's sake, it would be better if they sign an LOI because they are not the intended target countries for this topic, because it's EU-India. But so Canada should be an MOU, correct?
For any third country which is not named.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask,
Yeah.
did you mean during the proposal that they would submit a letter of intent
Yeah.
in the proposal, or are you
Exactly.
talking about after
No.
the way that they would be set up?
They were asked, they wanted to know, the coordinator wanted to know whether it should be with the proposal already, should there be an LOI with there or not.
The question would be, is actually going to be evaluated with even notice?
Well, but it's a one
depending on-
stage, it's a full proposal,
Okay.
so it's not a 2-stage.
Okay.
Then, fourth question, are the Indian partners supposed to sign the grant agreement in SC 512? The information is actually not given in the topic text. You can look, but you won't really find it. Question number 4.
Sorry,
Yeah.
out of curiosity, because I mean, I guess from Canada we have a different perspective from the EU, but as a general rule, any international partner don't have to sign a grant agreement unless they're receiving funding from the EU.
Well, from during the Info Day, SC5 Info Day 217, the Commission clearly stated they expect the Indian side to sign the grant agreement. And I have it on a black and white slide. I mean, it's online available.
Well, I guess we'll have to have further discussions then.
That's why I asked about that information.
Well, in SC5, that was the case. They expected China and India to sign the grant agreements. Cyril?
The same one in SC2. Also because I have an example of project with the US and Canada, if I'm not wrong, maybe I can show you, where they are part of the consortium, so they are part of the consortium, they are partners, so they have to sign the consortium, the grant agreement with zero funding, but they have to expose the cost of the project for them.
Well, that's the rationale for the article.
Yeah, so that's unless they're using Article 14A.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this. Try. I mean, this is important because for non-funded countries, there is this new exception which has not been used very much so far, but which is open for use by any partner from any non-funded country. And it's something where, you know, the partner has to put their hand up to say, I would like to use this provision. And in that case, they don't have to sign the grant agreement, and they can simply be represented by one of the members of the consortium who does. Now, that means that that member of the consortium then has to make sure that the international partner from the third country fulfills all of the requirements in terms of, you know, respecting IP and all the rules and that sort of thing. But the partner themselves do not have to sign. And this will be increasingly used, you know, in particular by some countries.
But for that we need really explanation that very often partners are reluctant because they take responsibility
Yes.
Yeah.
for the conduct
Yeah.
of the third.
Yeah. So normally this happens only where there is already a very trusted relationship between the EU partner and the third country partner, you know, and then it works. But it is a possibility which will be increasingly used and which will be carried over into Horizon Europe. So it's something that we need to, I think, go into in a bit more detail in,
Yes.
in a future session.
Sure.
Very short. I just wanted to point that it's in that sense that crucial information that the partners of the consortiums, which are mostly the researchers, they don't care about the formal legal and administration. So the consequence is that very often the third country partner is not informed properly about the consequences. And everything is fine until the moment that are faced suddenly the information, we have to sign the grant agreement. And that leads very often to withdrawal and many, many problems. And that's something what is typical, because the researchers, you know, they have other problems. But in that, in particular, in the cooperation with third country should be very clear in very, very early stage that the people from third country know what they are facing.
That's why today is so important.
Maybe I can add something from the experience we have. So, as Mrs. Saxena said, we are coordinating one of the EU-India water projects right now. And we had the case that the Indian partner had to sign the grant agreement. But the main problem for them was to sign, not from the scientific side, this as well, but to sign the grant agreement, whereas the negotiation with the DST or the DBT, the DST in their case, was not closed. So they said, how do you want us to sign a contract with the European Commission stating the tasks we have to do, the budget we have to have or we will have, without knowing if the DST is really going to agree it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then a simpler question, number 5. If the CELAC countries are participating, do I still need a minimum of 3 EU countries? Basically, Nicole already had that question in her slide. So, of course, yes, of course, you need the minimum of 3. But again, these are questions asked by our proposers. Other direct cost table, do I also need to add these for the Chinese partners? That is when you have the personnel cost exceeding 15%. I heard a yes somewhere? A nodding, or nobody wants to? Okay, should I answer it then? Okay, what we say is, since the Chinese partners also are supposed to fill the budget they're going to use, not the EU requested contribution, of course, that's 0. But the budget they're going to use is in budget table in part A. It is also makes sense for them to fill in the 15% personnel cost being exceeded. And then for a better overview, that's something we did in our, okay, it's just a CSA in NCP's care, but that's what we also did. We also listed basically all partners' personnel costs as an overview, just to get it all in one and not just the 15% level. So it's just a tip from my side. And the last question, which sections of the proposal templates are relevant for the Indian and Chinese partners? I know it's a bit tricky because it's a bit more detailed. Does anyone have a wild guess or a founded guess? So there are certain sections which overall, and this is all from the SD5 Info Day and the web stream from the Commission, so I've linked it. So you can also listen and read it. So I got it from those slides. So there are, of course, some overall aspects which have to be fulfilled. Part A, again, listed the minimum, the partner details are necessary because you need at least the minimum 3 Indian or Chinese. Then the cost category, the budget table should be filled also for the Indian or Chinese partners. And again, really important, EU contribution 0. In part B, section 3, what are they going to do? Their tasks, the roles is really very relevant, so that has to be listed. And especially because in both topics, the requirement of international cooperation is equal footing, a balance in research and partners. So you have to explain what their work is going to be. Very important, and this is something, the risk assessment mitigation plan, table 3.2, this is something the Commission again emphasized in last December's NCP meeting with the Commission in DG RTD. They said it is very important to explain if the project can go through, if the INCO partner, the relevant INCO partner, does not get any funding. Will the project fail, or are you able to have an alternative solution? And that is sometimes the determining factor in deciding, also in the ranking, in the final evaluation, etc., and deciding who's going to get funded. So it shouldn't be underestimated in thinking, oh, this is just one of the basic fulfillments, I'll just quickly fill it out. This is really, really crucial. What is your risk mitigation plan? And of course, the description of the partners, because they are valid partners. They have signed the grant. In the case of SD5, they were requested to sign the grant agreement. And so, of course, they should not miss as the description, in the partner description. And then, as usual, of course, they will need to be fully validated with the PIC once, of course, the grant agreement preparation starts. And now I'd just like to quickly ask Ms. Shrestha 1 or 2 questions concerning, because she has the practical experience, we only have, the intermediary experience. So just on what were the most recurring questions you got from your Indian partners on finances and formalities? What were like the biggest difficulties for them?
Well, formalities was the first question is, do I really need a PIC? So that's, I guess, a question everyone has. So explaining them the process to get a PIC and everything. And then about the financial part was, why should I fill in my costs in the budget if I will not get any money from the EU?
Found it, yeah.
So that's, the 2 main aspects.
Okay. And otherwise, in proposal and handing in and
we have the luck that we have a very competent Indian coordinator who basically followed the guidelines or the instructions you gave to the morning or the hints, contacted his counterpart in India to see how the funding is going to be. First, he tried to find out who he will get funding from, DST or DBT, where he should submit the proposal, which was the first very good, very important point. And based on that, he could easily find the information how to do and get the templates. And sharing with us, we were trying to really work together to be able to deliver everything as required by EU and by DST in our case.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I only have a short overview because also, as I'm coordinator of the NCP network project, NCP's Care, I also collected what were like the basic problems they faced on these 3 calls, EU, India, and China. India, China, and CELAC. And so there is also a handout with the full responses, which you'll be getting later. So that's just for your information. I only grouped 2 categories. One is the finances. And what I found really interesting is that in Slovakia, as such, there was no interest at all to participate at all for India, China, and CELAC. So also, I never thought of that aspect, that a country might not be interested in participating. But of course, that's possible. Then finances, again, the same question what you just said, the budget, whether it's really needed to include it into the budget table. Our European colleagues were asked the same. And also concerning the amount submitted to the EC. Often which countries are eligible and which ones can request contributions, so funding eligibility were basic questions. In China, it was not quite clear what kind of entities were allowed to participate, and there were conflicting information whether they have to be, it could be any type of entity or whether they have to be private companies. And also, this one I found really interesting. In India, there were several projects, obviously, where Indian partners left the consortium during the grant agreement preparation process. And so the question from the NCP was basically, wouldn't it mean that it changes the entire project scope and shouldn't have been evaluated again? I mean, I don't have an answer, but I found it really interesting that this happened. Well, it didn't happen in the German case, obviously. It did? Ah, okay. So you can tell. Okay.